According to the polls, the majority of Canadians want the carbon tax on farms scrapped. They recognize the burden this tax places on our agricultural sector. The Parliamentary Budget Officer himself reported that the carbon tax on propane and natural gas used for greenhouses, heating and cooling, livestock barns and drying grain will cost farmers nearly $1 billion by 2030. This is a staggering figure that highlights the needs for immediate action. The PBO also reported that Canadians will pay $486 million in GST on the carbon tax this year alone, and this figure is projected to exceed $1 billion by the year 2030. The administration cost of the carbon tax is another area of concern. In 2022, it cost nearly $83 million to administer the tax. Since 2019, it has cost taxpayers nearly $200 million just to manage this tax. According to the 2023 Food Price Report, the carbon tax will cost a typical 5,000-acre farm $150,000 by 2030. This is an unsustainable financial burden for our farmers. The Canadian Federation of Agriculture stated in 2022, growth in expenses such as the carbon tax outpaced the rise in farm income. Total farm operating expenses increased by almost 20%, the largest gain since 1979. Fertilizer prices for Canadian farmers increased by over 50%. Commercial feed expenses for livestock producers increased by 20%, and machinery fuel expenses increased by more than 50%. The reality on the ground is even more dire. We've heard that 44% of fresh fruit and vegetable growers are already selling at a loss, and 77% can't offset production cost increases. Even with an 80% exemption on carbon tax from natural gas, one Canadian pepper farmer still pays $150,000 a year in carbon taxes. Meanwhile, mushroom farms don't get this exemption, but greenhouses growing cannabis do. This makes no sense. The carbon tax currently costs greenhouse operators $22 million a year, and they'll pay between $82 and $100 million by 2030 when the carbon tax quadruples. The numbers speak for themselves. There are 145,000 farms in Canada, 15,000 of those are in Manitoba. According to the PBO, Manitoba farmers paid $3 million last year in carbon taxes on natural gas and propane to dry grain, heat and cool livestock barns, and grow food. On April 1st, when the carbon tax increased by 23%, Manitoba farmers will pay another $3 million in carbon taxes over the next year. Cumulatively, by 2030, they will have paid $37 million in Manitoba in carbon taxes on natural gas and propane. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has made clear that this bill will save farmers $1 billion by 2030, reducing the food prices for Canadian families currently struggling to afford groceries. When you tax the farmer who grows the food and you tax the trucker who transports the food, you tax the single moms, seniors, and all others who buy the food. All we're seeking with this bill is to get the carbon tax carve-out for farmers like the Liberals have already given for a smaller number of Canadians on home heating.